Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Welcome to r/AmITheButthole. And are you saying 2 AmITheButthole videos in a row? What's going on? Why? Why so much? Well, you guys seem to absolutely love it, so that's the video that I'm making. But with that out of the way, this first post by user/ImTheGrossGrandma is pretty damn funny, so let's get straight into it. My good friend Gracie made me aware a few weeks ago of a phrase that made both of us laugh till we were sore. A dirty phrase which is the key to a successful marriage. That is, to keep a man's stomach full and balls empty. Both of us are in our 70s and jovial and sprightly, if I may say so. I like the phrase, it was funny, and it stuck around in my mind. My family are aware I have a filthy sense of humour, and I do like to laugh. My eldest grandson is in his 30s and recently proposed to his fiancée. They made us aware of it via a family FaceTime session. It was very sweet and everyone was in good spirits, drinking and etc. My granddaughter and daughter pushed me to say a few words in the way of advice. But frankly, I wouldn't know, and I'm not one to give advice anyway. My grandson's fiancée said, no, give us some wisdom. So I said the phrase, and the only people who burst out laughing were my grandson and his fiancée. Everyone else looked mortified, and my granddaughter immediately started berating me. I told my friends this, and they think it wasn't a big deal. But my granddaughter and daughter have texted to say I was inappropriate and ruined a moment. Personally, not the butthole OP, and this is the sort of humour I want to keep as I get older. And come on, it sounds like all of your kids and grandkids are all grown adults. It's not like you were shouting this around 8-year-olds, so I think this is perfectly okay and pretty funny. And here's our next post by user/TotalChonk. So, I, 28 male, have been living with my girlfriend, 23 female, Holly, for just over a year. Holly suffers from a condition that causes constant muscle pain and aches. She used to take 2 medications called gabapentin and codeine, but replaced these with CBD oil. All I know about the oil is that it's mostly THC-free and 6 milligrams per drop, which is supposedly strong. I thought it was a bit hippie sounding, and honestly thought it was a scam at over £200 for a 10ml bottle. A couple of weeks ago, I had a really bad tension migraine. I didn't have any paracetamol or codeine on, so I decided to give the CBD drops a try. At this point in time, I had no idea they cost £200 a bottle. I used 4 or 5 drops, not realising it's a 1-drop starting strength. They absolutely had me on my butt for hours. I was more relaxed and chilled out than I've ever been. It also knocked my migraine out right away. I slept like a baby that night. I decided to use a few drops a day as it really improved my mood. Then, things went wrong. Holly was having a particularly bad day with her pain and went to use her drops. She called me into the bathroom and said, "This bottle should be almost full, and it's only got a little left. Have you been using my CBD?" I admitted that I'd been using just a few drops a day, but to be fair, the bottle is tiny, like 10 mils. I assume it cost her £5, not 200. Holly told me the cost of a CBD, and I laughed. So she got it up online, and she wasn't lying. It's £240 a bottle. I told her it's a complete rip-off scam, and she said, "If it's a scam, why have you been using it?" I told her it makes me feel really relaxed, but at that price, I could just buy a bottle of vodka and feel much more relaxed. She pointed out that she uses it for pain primarily, and asked me to cover the cost of half a bottle. I said no, I could never, ever have foreseen that a tiny bottle of CBD, which you can get at Holland & Barrett for like £10, would be over 200. We had a pretty big argument about it, and I left to stay at my parents' house. She said if I go to my parents, she won't let me back in because of the current climate. I think tensions are high at the moment, and she overreacted to what should have been a small issue. Asking me to pay for something so petty just really struck a nerve. Am I the butthole? I wasn't too sure what CBD oil was, but it's actually a cannabis oil, also called a hemp oil sometimes. That sort of makes sense. Now I understand where all this comes from and all the prices. But with that said, OP, you are definitely the butthole. as you said yourself, if it's such a petty thing, why not pay for it? That's the least you can do. You use someone's medicine without their permission. That's a pretty big no-no in my eyes. I mean, honestly, if you'd even asked before using it, it would have made it better. But yeah, massive you're the butthole OP. And here's our next post by user/weewee woes. My boyfriend, 30 male, and I, 28 female, have been together about a year. And when our city implemented lockdown for the virus, he decided to quarantine with me at my apartment, as I live alone and have a nicer apartment, and he has several roommates. Mostly, it's been going well, and thankfully we both still have jobs. Except, in the first few weeks, I started noticing that the bathroom floor was suddenly always wet around the toilet. The sink is across the room from the toilet, so it's unlikely to be from the sink. At first, I thought it might be water, but soon realised that it was definitely pee. I asked boyfriend about it nicely, and he apologised and said sometimes he had bad aim. I asked him to try a little harder, and he said sure. The floor continued to be frequently spattered with pee, and a few weeks later, I confronted him about it, because I think it's pretty gross to step in his pee several times a week, and it seems like an easy thing to fix. If he misses the toilet, I think the very least he could do is make sure to wipe it up with toilet paper or a Clorox wipe. The cleaning supplies even live in a cabinet directly over the toilet. He said sure, sorry, he would try to remember to do that. Another week has passed, and while maybe he's doing this sometimes, I've continued to step in splatters of his pee and wipe it off the floor and clean the floor several times a week. I thought about asking him to just pee in the bathtub or something instead, because I don't understand how you can pee on the floor by accident so often and not notice and not clean it up. Last night, I got up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night and absolutely stepped in pee for the millionth time. I had had it, and I didn't want to pick a fight or ask him again since it seems clear he can't or won't change. So I got one of my dog's wee-wee pads from when he was a puppy. He's well trained now. And cut it up a bit and taped it down to make a sort of skirt or mat around the floor near the toilet to at least absorb the pee. Boyfriend saw this in the morning and is furious with me, saying that I'm calling him a dog, comparing him to an animal and etc. Honestly, I wasn't thinking that at all. I was just trying to be resourceful and solve the problem for myself, since I don't like pee on my bathroom floor and don't like stepping in it. I didn't feel like arguing about it anymore, and putting a material specifically meant to absorb pee around the area he keeps peeing on by accident seemed like a practical solution. Am I the butthole? OP, not the butthole. In ways, your boyfriend is worse than your dog. At least your dog knows where it's allowed to pee. Honestly, a few solutions to this problem. Either fix your aim, or clean up after yourself, or another one, pee sitting down. I know this is for some reason frowned upon, but at the same time, you're in a toilet where no one's gonna see you. Why does it matter? And here's our next post by user/catty-kebab. As background, my sister-in-law had 3 living children before her stillbirth, and then gave birth to another living child 2 years later. Her 4 Earthside children have fairly common names, like Emma, Lauren, Sophie, and Andrew. Her stillborn daughter has a more unorthodox name. Something like Solstice. I have 1 son born sleeping and have had several miscarriages. I have no living children, but I'm a mum to a little boy up in heaven. Anyways, at Christmas, many of our family members got to meet their new baby for the first time. The subject of how his name was chosen came up, which led to my grandmother asking why their stillborn daughter had such an unusual name compared to their living children. My sister-in-law explained that they gave their daughter a guilty pleasure name because it mattered less. She said she wouldn't put her living children through the experience of having such an uncommon name, but that it didn't matter when it came to their daughter because she didn't have a life to live with her name. She even joked that she spent a quarter of the time picking out their daughter's name that they did choosing their other children's names because it just didn't matter, and they could do whatever. It hurt me to hear her say that. I've spent 6 years feeling like I have no right to call myself a mother, and feeling excluded from the mums club because my son died from circumstances beyond my control before I even got hold of him. To have my sister-in-law, who I've supported through each and every one of her pregnancies, who I held and comforted through her stillbirth, say that her child didn't matter because she wasn't alive, that hurt. It felt very intensely personal. I was right across from her at the table, and she said it with no remorse. I don't care if it took her 5 minutes or 5 days to choose a name for her child. I care that she said it didn't matter. I haven't said a word about it since then, but I lost my job, I've had too much time to think, and I keep replaying the whole thing over in my mind. I've been stewing about it, I keep drawing away from her, and I feel guilty. So I called her and told her that I had been really hurt by what she said. She was very callous immediately, telling me to get over myself and not tell her how to live her life. I got very upset and told her she couldn't talk about her daughter like she mattered less, and she just outright said, she does matter less. I just started to cry. I hung up and my husband consoled me for a while, but my brother called me to chew me out, saying I'd made his wife upset and she was already busy with their children, and she didn't need to babysit me as well. I've gotten texts and calls from half of the family, most of them blaming me for not moving past my son's death. My own mother told me it was time to start pursuing new family planning options, and that I was taking my distress at my loss out on my sister-in-law. Reddit, am I the butthole for telling my sister-in-law she can't say that her child doesn't matter? Look, Reddit's voted this one, you're the butthole, but I want to say everyone sucks here. It's just that everyone copes with these sort of things differently. And it is awful losing a child, in OP's case losing her only child to stillbirth. But it doesn't make it any less for her sister-in-law. And I guess it's just different ways for coping with these things, where OP just doesn't have any other children to think of, and this is really something which has made a big impact on her life. But for the sister-in-law, she's able to focus more on her other children and not think so much about the stillbirth that would have caused her a lot of pain. I really think that OP did the right thing here in calling her sister-in-law and telling her she doesn't like the way she speaks of her stillborn child. And maybe the sister-in-law should keep that in mind for the future when talking about it at family gatherings when OP's around. But at the same time, OP can't dictate how her sister-in-law will deal with these things. And I think if they can settle to keep it very calm and civil around each other, this really shouldn't be much of a problem in the future. Alright, I honestly don't know what to say or how to say it anymore, so let's move on to the next story by user/OrshivaYorgogain. My son is 10. 1 year ago, he asked for a pet guinea pig. We have a large garden, so I agreed, but only with some terms. I would cover the upkeep of food, bedding, and pig treats and toys. He would have to save up half the money for a large hutch, and I would pay for a large outdoor run. He agreed and did his chores, and for his birthday, I paid for 2 guinea pigs from a local seller. My son named the guinea pigs Pudding and Candy. Within days of buying them, my son lost interest. He refused to feed them, refused to clean them, and refused to move their run around the garden, so they were on fresh grass. I warned him multiple times that I would take possession of the pigs as my own. I discussed this with my husband before we got them, that I would quite enjoy having them in the garden, as I had guinea pigs growing up and always adored them. So after a few months of doing 100% of the work myself, I renamed the guinea pigs Gerald and Roach. When my son was in the garden playing, he heard me calling them to get them in the pen. I moved them from the outdoor run and pen to the indoor shed pen at night. He threw an absolutely huge tantrum and demanded I change the names back. I said if he began looking after them like he was supposed to, that he could change the names back. He continued to sulk and moan, but eventually agreed to these terms. It's been a week since the tantrum, and he hasn't been near them since. He sulks every day about the names, but refuses to help. My husband has told me to just change the names back and let it go. But I prefer those names, and seeing as I'm doing all the work, and I see them as my pets now, not my son's, why shouldn't I? I will gladly rethink this situation if I'm wrong or missing the point, but I just don't think my husband's point is very fair. My son needs more discipline already, as he seems to be so demanding and sulky lately. Am I the butthole? Personally, OP, not the butthole. I think this is actually quite a good parenting strategy. If your son can take responsibility, he gets to reap the reward, he gets to name his guinea pigs, and he gets to have fun and play with them. Sure, maybe you're not being nice to your son by caving into his demands, but that's what parenting is about. You need to teach your kids the right way to do things. Even, or maybe especially, if that means not giving them exactly what they want. And at the same time, I feel like getting young kids pets isn't a good idea, especially if the caveat is that they're gonna look after them. Honestly, kids get bored of things very quickly, and the parents should always be prepared to take over the responsibility in case their kids bail. And looks like OP was fully prepared to do that, so nice work OP, not the butthole, keep doing what you're doing. And here's our next post by user/EdenFlicker. So, we're both vegan and have been for years. Last year, we got a beautiful cat who is the grandbaby neither of our parents will ever have. She's obviously an obligate carnivore, and we've been feeding her kibble and wet food. Unfortunately, where she came from wasn't a good situation, and she had horrible teeth when we rescued her. It hasn't come to a point where she's painful and doesn't want to eat kibble, but if it does, wet food will just make it worse. We went on a website for raw feeding animals and bought her some chicken necks and chicken hearts. According to the vet, this should encourage her to use her teeth, as the smell is more appetizing than space nuggets. We've obviously been quite uncomfortable with this, as it's raw meat in our otherwise vegan home, but we'd do anything for our little gremlin, so it's worth it. We've since had some friends over who were horrified when we got raw meat out and asked us if we weren't vegan, and we said that we were, and still are, but that Kitty is not. They're now saying we're fake vegans, and that we don't care about animal welfare if we're feeding her raw meat. We don't see the issue, as these are parts of a chicken that humans wouldn't eat, and we're following what our vet told us to keep our baby at optimal health. In our minds, these parts of already slaughtered animals would otherwise just be thrown away. This has created quite a bit of drama in our friend group, as some people are now accusing us of being hypocrites, while the other half say that we're just caring for our cats. Are we the buttholes here? Oh, OP again, not the butthole. It just annoys me when people are like that. They get pets, cats and dogs, who are, well, cats are carnivores. They do incorporate, I think, a bit of grain in their diet, but mostly carnivores. Dogs are omnivores, but they also need a fair bit of meat in their diet. You're just doing what's best for your cat. How about you suggest this proposition to your friends? You just feed your cat grains and greens and whatever it is, and then you're basically torturing the poor animal. How is that any better? I find that most vegans go vegan for ethical reasons, and I don't think it'd sit well with them. And I think this post will be the last one for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel for edit videos 3 times every single week. But with that said, that is it from me. I hope you all enjoyed, and all I want to do is see you all here next time. See you later, guys.